Hey, greetings and God bless you. I'm Bishop Terrence Carter, Senior Pastor here at United Christian Center in Okinawa, Japan. And unfortunately, we are back to online services only due to an uptick of coronavirus on the military bases here in Okinawa, Japan. And I know, like me, many of you in this moment are feeling frustrated, maybe angry, possibly tired and exasperated after months of restrictions. You're just starting to get some alleviation of those restrictions, lightening of those, and getting some sense semblance of normalcy back. And then because of the poor decisions of leadership and the irresponsibility and bad actions of others, we find ourselves back in this condition. And it can be quite frustrating, really, when your life is negatively impacted by the choices of other people. It sounds like I'm kind of speaking in code, but those here know, let me just be plain, that the military decided to PCS people into Okinawa, which was corona-free, and inevitably some of those folk they PCS'd in were corona positive. In addition to that, many of the military folk here have not been taking serious the precautions pertaining to the coronavirus. And there was really one large event that went public and posted online of people not social distancing, not wearing masks. And that's just one example of a large visible thing, but it's been going on really on smaller scales where people do not take this serious. And then as a whole, others don't take this serious, but then all of us are impacted by their poor decisions and their inaction or bad actions. And that can be frustrating, and it can leave people feeling like, man, this is why I want to get out of the military and I want to go back to the States. But listen, doesn't matter where you go. Your life is always going to be impacted by the actions of others. First, we are impacted by the actions of those within our family. Husbands and wives are impacted by the actions of your spouse. Parents are impacted by the actions of their children. Children are heavily impacted by the actions of their parents. But you know, this works both good and bad. We suffer when people make bad decisions that impact us, but we are also blessed when people make good decisions that impact us in a positive way. All of us are benefactors of the blessings of the labor, work, and effort of other people. It is the result of living in community, and you cannot get around the fact that by living in community, you are affected by other people. And we have a biblical mandate in the Bible, and this is where my message is going to be on today. I had to shift it based upon current issues. I was going one direction, but I want to speak to the issue that we're in because I know many like me are frustrated, and we need a word pertaining to where we're in. And I want to give you a word coming from Galatians chapter 6. Turn there to Galatians chapter 6. We're going to look at the first 5 verses. Galatians chapter 6. It says, "Brethren, even if one is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness. Each one look into yourselves so that you too will not be tempted. Bear one another's burdens and therefore or thereby fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But each one must examine his own work, and then he will have reason for boasting in regard to himself alone and not in regard to another. For each one will bear his own load." I want to take my thought from verse 2. Where it says, bear one another's burdens and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. And I want to title this message today, Burden Bearers, Burden Bearers. Listen, as I already stated, man, we are impacted by that which others do. And that really is by design. God designed it so that we are to have impact on each other and to realize that we have a responsibility as it pertains to our brothers and sisters. This is true in every community, but more so in the body of Christ. Paul writes in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, 16, he says, "But speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in all aspects into him who is the head, even Christ, from whom the whole body being fitted and held together by what every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body for the building up of itself in love." Note verse 16, it says, "From whom the whole body being fitted and held together by what every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part." When everyone does their part, we are blessed. When others don't do their part, it negatively impacts us. In this coronavirus, when others do not wear masks, when others do not social distance, it impacts us. When others conceal information and don't give us the truth pertaining to the numbers of who are actually infected, it impacts the decisions we make and responsibility to those things. And this lack of transparency and this bad behavior has a negative impact. When people don't do their part, it affects all of us. That's why we have to have personal responsibility, but also responsibility to the community. The Bible is littered with one another statements telling us how we are to act in response to one another. Romans 12:10 says, be devoted to one another and honor one another above ourselves. We're told in Romans 12:16 to live in harmony with one another. We are told to build up one another in Romans 14:19 and 1 Thessalonians 15:11. We are told in Romans 15:5 to be like-minded unto one another. We are told in Romans 15:7 to accept one another. We are told to admonish one another in Colossians 3:16. We're told to care for one another in 1 Corinthians 12:25. We're told to serve one another in Galatians 5:13. We are told in Ephesians 4:2 to be patient with one another. We are told to be kind and compassionate to one another and to forgive one another in Ephesians 4:32. We're told in Ephesians 5:21 to submit to one another. Philippians 2:4 says, look to the interests of one another. We're told to comfort one another in 1 Thessalonians 4:18. We're told to encourage one another in 1 Thessalonians 5:11. We're told to exhort one another in Hebrews 3:13. We're told to stir up, that is, provoke, stimulate one another to love and good works in Hebrews 10:24. We're told to show hospitality to one another in 1 Peter 4:9. 1 Peter 4:10 says to employ the gifts that God has given us for the benefit of one another. And James tells us in his epistle, chapter 5, verse 16, that we are to pray for one another. And the big kahuna is in John 13:34, where we're told to love one another. We have responsibility to one another, and we got to hold up our part of the one another, even when the other side doesn't hold up its part of the one another. The great commands that we are given, when Jesus is asked to tell what is the greatest of the commands, he says in Matthew chapter 22, verse 20 to beginning in verse 37, he said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and foremost command. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets. He said this whole thing is hanging on us loving God and loving one another. That's what it's on. It's on that. And loving one another oftentimes causes us to sacrifice for one another, to give up liberties for one another, to go through for one another. It can be frustrating and exasperating at times, but it is the command that we are given by God. It is hard, but the love of God compels us to do so. Take a look at this video.
What does it mean to love one another? Is it an emotion of the heart, an act of service, a force of the will? Can love ever truly be defined? We think so often in simple terms, but real love goes much deeper. It strengthens the weak, helps those in need, lives in harmony with all people, and holds us accountable. Love means carrying each other's burdens, admonishing and instructing, showing compassion and feeling it too, spurring one another to good deeds, confessing and forgiving, building and maintaining trust, being of one mind no matter our differences. Love means accepting others for who they are and allowing ourselves to be changed in the process. So love holds us together, grafted by faith into the one true Christ, whose example compels us to love one another.
Well, as you see, man, that is the great command that we would love one another. Christ compels us to love one another. Let's go back to our opening text, and let's break this down and see what God really wants to say to us to encourage us in this season that we are in. Galatians 6:1 says, "Brethren, even as one is, if anyone is caught up in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself, so that you will not be tempted." Right? So let's break it down first. See, we all have been given the ministry of reconciliation. Every believer, we have the ministry of reconciliation. The text says when there is someone who is caught up in a trespass, it is the job of those of us who are spiritual, and all of us should seek to be spiritual, to restore them. We've been given the ministry of reconciliation. Second Corinthians chapter 5, verse 18 says, "Now all these things are from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation." Reconciliation is spiritual work for spiritual people. Why is it necessary that spiritual people be the ones who are involved in reconciliation? The text tells us so that we don't get caught up, that we don't fall into the same thing. Because one, if you are not spiritual, you'll be tempted to fall into the same trespass that the individual you're trying to restore is in. Also, if you're not spiritual, in the restoration process, you can start becoming prideful and feeling that you're all of that, because when you're dealing with other people's problems, you can think that you are above them. When you're spiritual, you realize that just like them, you got issues, and you don't look down on anybody when you're helping them, because at some point in time in life, you'll find yourself being the one needing help instead of being the one giving the help. Note the text says when there was someone caught up in a trespass. This is not talking about everyday ordinary sin. We all sin on a regular basis. We try to do it less and less, but all of us are seeking to grow in God, and at times we sin and we fall. This is talking about being caught up. To be caught up in something big, a trespass, something that's kind of overtaking you and you are deep into it. And some people get caught up and fall into sin so deep that they need help coming out of it. And those of us who are spiritual should not look down on them when they're in it, but help to pull them up out of it. And when we don't exercise this law of Christ, we do the body of Christ no justice. Some people feel better looking at people who have fallen completely into something, because it makes you feel better about your daily indiscretions when you see someone caught up into something big. But being spiritual says, I want to help my brother. I want to assist my brother to pull them out of what they are in. That's why the second verse, which is key to our message, says to bear one another's burdens and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. We are to be burden bearers. We like to say that Jesus is a burden bearer, a heavy load sharer. Yes, Jesus is, but so are you supposed to be. All of us are supposed to be burden bearers and heavy load sharer. Must Jesus bear the cross alone and all of us go free? No. We got to help bear the cross and the work of Christ. One of the problems in the body of Christ and in the church, and one of the reasons why many of us pastors feel overwhelmed at times, is because not enough people will help carry the load, will help carry the cross, will pick up the weight and the burden of ministry and help it to come to pass. We need to bear one another's burdens. Note what it says in verse 3, for if anyone thinks he's something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But each one must examine his own work, then he will have reason for boasting in regard to himself alone and not in regard to another. For each one will bear his own load. First of all, let's break this all down. We're commanded to bear one another's burdens. But in doing so, we're not to think we are more than we are. Real maturity in this, first of all, recognizes that we are to be interdependent, not independent. In life, we start off as babies who are completely dependent on our parents. As we grow older, usually when we get in that teen stage, we enter what is called a rebellion, where we want to experience life outside of the authority of our parents, and we rebel and we seek independence. But once you really mature in life, you discover you need to be interdependent. I need you. You need me. I have a part to play. You have a part to play. And together we can do much more than we can apart. I don't make statements like, I don't need nobody. All of us need somebody. People who make those statements are people who are hurt and wounded, and they have been let down time and time and time again by other people, that they have decided to go through it in life alone. The problem is that while you may have some success on your own, you'll never reach your full potential by yourself. We need others to open doors for us, to give us a boost, to encourage us, to push us, to help hold us up when we get weak and when we get weary. And here's something I need to say to you, for those of you who have been hurt and have closed yourself off emotionally because you have been hurt. While you have yourself closed off, at the same time that it's preventing you from being hurt, it's also preventing you from being loved. In order to be loved, you have to open up and be vulnerable. And the reality is that as we go through this life, people are going to hurt us. People are going to let us down. But man, don't check out. Don't check out of life. Stay checked in. Stay plugged in, because there are some people that will help you, strengthen you, encourage you, walk with you, and be there for you. There are some people who will help you carry your load. We just got to learn, one, how to pick them better. We have to learn how to have better discernment with people, and not to trust everybody. We're told to love everybody, but we're never told to trust everybody. We have to have discernment and wisdom with what we share and who we will depend on. But as we mature, we become interdependent. Let's get back with here. And the text says that when we examine ourselves, in regard to ourselves, we will have reason to boast, but that reason to boast will be in regard to ourselves alone, verse 4, and not in regard to another. What is that saying? It says that our reason to boast will be in regard to ourselves and not to another. What that saying is that I should evaluate myself and seek to be a better me than tomorrow than I am today, and I can boast about my advancement, how I have improved, not how I'm better than you. My boasting is not a comparison of me to you, your failures and your fallings, but how I have learned from my own personal failures and how I am seeking to improve. Let me read it again. But each one must examine his own work, and then he will have reason for boasting in regard to himself alone and not in regard to others. Now note verse 5. You better catch it, because verse 5 seems to contradict verse 2. Verse 2, we're told, bear one another's burdens and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. Verse 5 says, for each one will bear his own load. King James actually says each one is to bear his own burden. How does it do that? How does it tell us bear one another's burden in verse 2? Then in verse 5 says each one is to bear his own burden. Well, that's why we got to go to the Greek. That's why it's important to read different translations so you can get clearer understanding. Because in the Greek in which the text is originally written, it is two different Greek words that is used there. King James chose to translate both of those Greek words to the word burden. The New American Standard Version of the Bible that I'm reading for translated it in verse 2 as burden and in verse 5 as load. Let me give you a further explanation of what the Greek words say. In verse 2, the Greek word that is used is a Greek word that talks of a burden or a weight that is too large for an individual to bear. It is a load that is too heavy for one individual to take. Verse 5, the Greek word that's used there is a Greek word that really means like a pack, like a backpack one would put on themselves, not a heavy load, but something of a backpack. And so what the text is saying, that all of us have a personal load to carry. But there are greater burdens that are community burdens, that are societal burdens that each one of us should help to carry along. This is when we talk about the difference between personal responsibility and community responsibility. We each have individual responsibilities. And quite frankly, the way I fulfill my individual responsibility has an impact on the community at large. But I have responsibility to the community that I am in. I have a responsibility to my family. I am the provider. I am the progenitor of my family. I have a responsibility to provide for my family. The Bible says a man that fails to provide for his household is worse than an infidel. I had a responsibility to raise and nurture my children. Even though both of them are grown and in their late 20s and 30s, I still have a responsibility to lead and guide them as the elder statesman in my family, if you would. All right. And so I have a responsibility to my wife. I have responsibilities that impact them by what I do and what I don't do. I have a responsibility to the community that I live in. If you live in a neighborhood and someone doesn't take care of their house, they don't cut their grass, they don't paint their house, they leave trash and broken down vehicles in front of their house. Now that's their property. They own it, but by not taking care of their personal property, they lower the housing value of everybody in the neighborhood. So we see how the actions or inactions of others have impact on us. And there are in greater ways than that how I move and act. And of course, in this coronavirus, if I choose to act irresponsible in the community pertaining to this coronavirus, it has a negative impact on others. I have a personal responsibility to take care of my own health, but when I fail to do it, when there is a communicable disease, when there is a pandemic going around in the area, in the world, that it impacts others when I don't take my personal responsibility. Isn't it interesting when you see all of these anti-maskers who want this liberty and want to fight to go into stores and places without wearing their mask? We see this all on social media when simply, man, if we want to get control. One of the reasons why Okinawa in Japan first had this virus under control so well, that they generally are mask-wearing people in the first place. So it was something that they had no problem doing, that when they're sick, they wear masks. So when asked to do that, it was not something that really even needed to be mandated, that the majority of them just did it. And we in the Christian community should be willing to do what's going to help other people. Even if I don't feel sick myself, if I don't feel like I'm contagious, just on the off chance that I should follow the precautions for other people. That's part of bearing another burden. We should help each other in the community. Man, I need to do a whole message on how we should support one another and hold each other up in the community. We have got to learn to help carry the load of others. But somebody's asking, Bishop, how can I help carry somebody else's load when my weight is so heavy? I can't even carry what's going on in my life because all of us have weight. Take a look at this video.
I'm in debt. I have 2 car payments, 4 years into a 30-year mortgage, balances on a couple credit cards, plus college for 3 kids on the horizon. 0 savings. I work long hours at a job that I hate, and despite all that, all I get is stress about how I can make more money. I take 4 pills at night for my back pain. Some days, getting up seems like too much. I struggle with dyslexia. I have high cholesterol. I overeat a little too often. I'm trying to get in shape, but it's never enough. My dad died 5 years ago from cancer. I should have seen him more before he passed. Man, I miss him so much. Everyone expects me to be over it, but it's something that I still deal with daily. I haven't taken my wife on a date in 4 months. I practically forgot our anniversary. My kids need me when I get home, but it's late. I want to sleep. I spend my weekends at their functions, as if that's enough. All this, and I still resent my family, because I have no time just for me. I can be amazingly selfish. I'm often angry, seemingly for no reason. I struggle with lustful thoughts, none of which my wife understands. Nor do I, for that matter. I'm good at some things, I'm great at nothing. I had dreams for my work and my family, and I abandoned them long ago. I think I'm a realist, and I come off as a pessimist. I feel restless knowing something is missing. I have too many burdens. They're suffocating. And this is the weight I carry.
Well, true enough, many of us have weight on us that seems like it's more than we can bear, that we can't make it. And let's tell you, I've been there before. Heck, I'm there right now, where I feel like I'm in that place where I am overwhelmed. And let me encourage you as I encourage myself with this Bible verse from 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 7 through 10. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, so that the surpassing greatness of the power will be of God and not of ourselves. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not despairing. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. Always carrying about in the body the dying of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus also may be manifest in our body. Yes, we're stressed. Yes, we go through. And yes, that we have these earthen vessels and it feels like we can't carry the load. But man, let me give you something that you can carry it if you do a few things. Let me tell you how we can do it. Be encouraged, first of all, that what's on you hasn't taken you out. You got to learn that what you've been going through hasn't completely killed you. What you're going through is common to man in the first place. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, no temptation has overtaken you, but such as common to man. And God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide a way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it. Let me say this, take the way out. God will always give you a way of escape. Take the way out and note that whatever you're going through, you're not special. All of us go through something and you can handle it, because if you couldn't handle it, the text told me God wouldn't let you get it. So whatever we're getting, we can handle it. We are stronger than what we think. We just got to make up our mind not to give up. Man, why don't you tap a shot at somebody in your house right there where you are online and tell them, don't give up, don't give up. I know the weight is heavy, but don't give up. Here's what we got to do. We got to get rid of the weight and the sin. I'm going to leave you with this. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2 says, wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. The text is letting me know that, man, life is a marathon, and each of us have a race to run. You got to run your race, and I got to run my race. And it also lets me know not only is this life a marathon, it's an obstacle course. There are tricks and traps in our way, and that's why we got to lay aside the weight and the sin that does so easily beset us. And we got to make a clear delineation and understanding between the difference between weight and sin. Weight is the struggles. Weight is the temptations. Weight is the things we got to go through in our life, the hardships that we face. Weight are the responsibilities that we have. Sin is when we break the law of God. You got to know the difference between a weight and a sin. The New American Standard Version calls it a encumbrance or entanglement. It went Jada Pickett Smith on us, calling what is calling it an encumbrance or an entanglement. But you got to make a clear delineation, just like Will looked at her at the red table and said, "Now be clear, you called it an entanglement, but what is it really?" Some of y'all have to hashtag that to see what I'm talking about there. But there's a difference between an entanglement and an encumbrance and a sin. Sin is when you're doing something outright wrong, and that we need to repent. The weight we have, we gotta get the weight off of it. First of all, there's some weight we put on us we don't need to. There's some burdens that we have that are not our burdens. And then there's some burdens we have that are our burdens, but they're too heavy for us to carry alone. And we have got to accept the help that is available to us. We have to lean on the support systems around us. In spite of those who have let us down in the past, we got to learn to lean on others. But first and foremost, and I got to go, you got to look to Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. Man, if we're going to make it through this, Jesus is still the answer. I got to still stay in prayer. I got to still stay in worship. I got to do like David and encourage myself in the Lord. Heck, you're locked into your house and they're not allowing you to get out. So you might as well take some time while you're up in there and lean and depend on Jesus and know that he will get you through this. He got you through the last 3-4 months that we've been in this, and he's going to get you through what's coming. Look into Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. And not only only that, the text began with saying we have such a cloud of witnesses. Why? Because chapter 12 follows verse 11, which is called, chapter 11 rather, which is called the Hall of Faith, where it lists all of the patriarchs of the faith and how they trusted God and how their life was made better when they went through many struggles that were worse than whatever we're going through right now. And if God got them through what they went through because they looked to him, if we look to God, God's going to get us through what we're going through. And we got to learn how to lean and depend on him, but also we got to learn how to lean and depend on each other and strengthen one another. We got to be burden bearers and heavy load sharers. Yeah, we got to encourage one another. Listen, thank you for tuning in online. Please, y'all, we're back to this online only, but we still need your financial support. Even though you're not allowed to come to a building, we still have a building that we have to maintain. We still have expenses here at the church, and you can give by going to our website at www.uicfc.org. That is www.uicfc.org, or you can text to give at the number on the screen below. You just text the word give to that number, and you will get a reply that will further instruct you how to give. Thank you for tuning in on our broadcast. Don't forget, we're still fasting Tuesdays from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. water only. We're concluding our time of prayer and fasting with an online prayer and devotion at 7:30 p.m. Japan time. Catch us online for that short 15-minute prayer and devotion. And Wednesdays, get with us as we are continuing in our Bible study online at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays, and we are beginning a new study that I have entitled Foundational Truths. There are some foundational truths that every Christian needs to know. If you don't build a strong foundation, you can't go higher. We got to start with a strong foundation. So listen, thank you for tuning in. Remember to give and support. If you want to connect with our ministry, email us at info@uicfc.net. That is info@uicfc.net, or call our church office Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And someone will address your call. Again, thank you for your support and enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you.